Hi, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Angela.
And I'm Wesley.
Today is the 16th of July, and we're on page 48 of the magazine. And today we're talking about the Malware Museum. It's a museum towards things that frustrate everybody who use computers deeply. It's not towards, it's the museum of these things.
好，那我们的中文标题是恶意软体博物馆无痛体验古早病毒。好，那这个中文标题呢有提供比较多的资讯。好，那这里标题最重要的那个字 malware 就是恶意软体，电脑的恶意软体。
So we have a lot to talk about today. There's a lot of terms in here we need to discuss. So let's get started right away with the article. Modern malware is sneaky. Different kinds of malware can do anything from tracking keystrokes, hoping to get useful information, to stealing just a little bit of ad revenue or system resources. Back in the 1990s, however, computer viruses were not nearly as sophisticated. If today's malware were a criminal, it would be a con artist or even a gentleman thief. Early viruses were more like vandals breaking windows with rocks. These early viruses were usually flashy and included custom graphics, even their creators' names, as part of their function. They were all about causing trouble and would often lock down affected systems or delete all the contents of a hard drive. And for the most part, computer hackers did this just for fun. They caused trouble just because they could. It was a unique time in the history of technology, and like many other unique eras, it even has its own museum. The Malware Museum was established by a cybersecurity expert named Mikko Hyppönen and a computer historian named Jason Scott. Hyppönen has collected old viruses for many years. And even though they are no longer dangerous to most computers, he has deactivated the harmful code and just left the rest of the viruses function. Without any threat of deleting a victim's hard drive, the viruses are almost like works of art. Most include graphics or animations, and they act as a reminder of a simpler time on the internet. The museum exists exclusively online, where visitors, who have flocked to the website by the thousands, can see examples of another era of computer culture. And though the viruses were often far more destructive than today's malware, Hyppönen acknowledges that they were rarely done as part of organized crime, but by happy hackers who were pushing the limits of what was possible on the web. So, modern malware is sneaky. This is such a pithy sentence. It's so true. It really is sneaky.
好，所以这个 modern 就是现代的 malware 恶意软体。好，那 malware 其实 mal 这个字首呢，或者这个字根它的意思是 bad 的意思啊，所以就是恶意的、坏的啊。那 sneaky 就是很会暗中搞鬼啊，偷偷摸摸的、鬼鬼祟祟的啊。那这个字应该蛮好记的，那各位可以顺便学两个跟它意思差不多的字啊，那比较高级一点的字哈，也不是比较高级，比较少见、比较难一点的字，但是可能你阅读会碰到的。第一个是 furtive 啊 ，F-U-R-T-I-V-E 啊 ，furtive 也是偷偷摸摸的、鬼鬼祟祟的，尤其它可以指行动上面很秘密的。好，那另外一个字呢很长，但是我觉得 somehow 这个蛮好记的，因为它声音很特别哈 ，surreptitious。这个
No, that's a great one.
Yeah, 这个字很棒哈，它的拼法是 S-U-R-R-E-P 啊 ，S-U-R-R-E-P， 然后呢 T-I-T-I-O-U-S， S-U-R-R-E-P-T-I-T-I-O-U-S 啊，所以这个字也是秘密的、鬼鬼祟祟的啊，的偷偷的意思。
Let's quick talk about why malware is called malware, though, because originally we had hardware, which was the physical piece of the computer, and it used to be only hardware. But then we had software, which are the programs that run on the hardware, sort of like the programs inside the brain of the computer. So we have this ware, like we have hardware or silverware. Ware just means tools. So malware are bad tools.
Yeah. 所以这个malware 我们刚刚讲 mal 是 bad 的意思，那 ware 就是 tools 好，所以像 hardware, software 一样的 ware。
So malware came out of this idea of tools, and then these are tools run amok. So different kinds of malware can do anything from tracking keystrokes, meaning they record which keys you've pressed on your computer, which means that you can figure out what someone's typed. Actually, regular programs have to track your keystrokes so that you can literally type in your computer. If they didn't track your keystrokes, your typing anything would mean nothing. So normal word processing programs will track your keystrokes. Google, Gmail tracks your keystrokes. Anybody you type into tracks your keystrokes. But these keystroke trackers are not resulting in anything on your screen. They're not helping you do anything. They're just keeping track of it so that they can get useful information about what you're saying, and they're taking it to somewhere else. Or they do stuff like stealing just a little bit of ad revenue, because if you just steal 1% of something, but you do it thousands and thousands of times over, you can get quite a lot of money just by stealing a little bit at a time. Or the one that makes me more angry is it steals system resources. They come in and literally use your computer to do their thing. Meanwhile, you're like, why is the internet so slow? And it's not. It's because someone's using your computer.
好，所以呢，这个句子讲到说 different kinds of malware 就是不同的恶意软体呢 can do 他们可以做什么样 anything from A to B 就是在 A 到 B 这个范围里面任何的事情他们都可能会做啊。所以这个 from 因为它是介系词，所以它后面接的那个范围如果有动词的话，像在这里 track 那你就必须要加个 ing 因为 from 是介系词，所以 A 就是怎么样 tracking keystrokes 好，那 track 就是它会跟踪会留下记录你的这个 keystrokes 就是你按键盘的动作。那刚刚 Angela 老师有提到说，其实所有的几乎所有的软体啊，或者是很多东西，它都会 track 你的 keystrokes， 但是他们那个只是为了作业方便哈。但是在恶意软体的话呢，它把你的这个键盘动作把它留下记录之后，它就可以想办法冻结手脚。例如说，他这里讲的，它可以说 hoping to get useful information。他可能是希望能够得到一些有用的资讯，甚至于就是他能够抓出你的密码等等的东西啊。那这是from A to B 的 A 就是 tracking keystrokes hoping to get useful information。那 B 呢是 stealing 也是一样加个 ing。好，所以到什么范围都有呢？到偷窃，偷什么东西 ？Just a little bit of ad revenue， 他就偷你一点点的广告收益哈。这个 revenue 就是收益，好，所以 ad revenue 就是广告的收益，他就偷一点点，你可能没有注意到，他的每次偷一点，那也可以累积很多，或者是他会偷你的，刚刚 Angela 讲的，他会偷你的 system resources， 你的系统资源。所以有的时候呢，你可能你觉得，你电脑怎么好像越跑越慢，其实是因为有人这种恶意软体，他偷了你的电脑资源，他其实在用你的电脑或者在用你的网络，你不知道，所以你反而速度慢了，你不晓得。
Back in the 1990s, however, in the Wild West period of the internet, computer viruses were not nearly as sophisticated. They weren't as smart.
所以呢，它没有这么复杂，没有这么 sophisticated， 也就是没有这么聪明啊。什么东西没有这么聪明呢？我们看这个句子，他说这个我们回到1990年代的时候back in the 1990s。好，那 computer viruses 就是电脑的病毒呢，并 not nearly as 这个 not nearly 在这里就是 not even close to 或者 not at all much less than 的意思，就是远不及远不及怎么样 as sophisticated 就是没有像现在的电脑病毒这么的 sophisticated， 没有这么的复杂，没有这么的精密所以 not nearly as 就是远不及怎样怎样的。
If today's malware were a criminal, it would be a con artist or even a gentleman thief. This is our author's opinion. I disagree. There is nothing gentlemanly about what our modern malware is doing to us. Definitely a con artist. Or maybe I would compare it to organized crime.
Oh, yeah. 好，所以也许跟着这个甚至于你可以觉得这些电脑病毒这诈骗分子有时候是一种这个犯罪组织都有可能。
To be honest, a lot of organized crime does use malware to do their thing. So he's making it sound kind of like cute and fun, and there's nothing cute and fun about modern malware.
Yeah, 其实恶意软体还是很讨厌的那我们看到这个句子，他说，如果今天的恶意软体你把它看成是个 criminal 的话是一个罪犯的话，那 it would be a con artist， 那这种罪犯呢，他就是怎么样？就是个诈骗分子。A con artist 就是诈骗分子，就我们现在诈骗集团那种诈骗分子，那个就是 con artist artist 好，他利用你的信任啊，或者是假装他是什么，其实不是啊。那甚至于他可能是 a gentleman thief 好，我们叫做绅士怪盗。那个 gentleman thief 其实是小说里面的一种角色啊，这个常见的角色。那所谓的 gentleman thief 通常什么样？他 inherited wealth， 他通常是这个继承了很多财产，所以他是有钱人啊，他不是为了生活才去偷的。好，那而且呢，这些人有钱，而且他这个他会避免使用武力，他也不会这个威胁你啊，他不是来硬的，他是来软的啊，他很 gentlemanly。好，那这个有的时候他偷东西呢是有那种侠盗的性质啊等等，所以我们把它翻成绅士怪盗。
Early viruses were more like vandals breaking windows with rocks or graffiti artists.
Yeah， 好，这个 vandals 就是破坏分子哈，他会破坏这个公共财产或者是在乱画乱搞东西的哈。所以早期的病毒呢比较像破坏分子哈，他们就好像破坏分子怎么样呢？是拿石头砸玻璃啊，所以就干一些小坏事的意思。
Okay, now we're on the second paragraph. These early viruses, the ones in the 90s, were usually flashy, meaning they were visually loud. They had a lot of colors. They literally flashed a lot of the time. And included custom graphics. They made up their own pictures and graphics, which sounds not that hard now because now the internet has been optimized for pictures. But at the time, having pictures at all was very difficult to do. And making your own pictures that moved and stuff was also seriously, like you had to have a lot of skill to put pictures up on the web. So they included these custom graphics, these pictures, and they would even include their creators' names as part of their function. Like creators would sign their viruses just to be like, haha. It was kind of like graffiti, to be honest, in a lot of ways.
OK， 我们看到这个，他说这个句子，他说这些早期的这些病毒呢，通常是 flashy 就是很招摇哈。那英文呢，这个所谓的 flashy 常常就是给你感觉很 cheap 哈，然后 showy 那种感觉
，like fake gold jewelry hanging all over the place。
哦，这好像这个假的珠宝啊，这到处挂着那样的感觉起来就是 tastelessly showy 那种感觉啊，所以它很招摇。然后呢，他们会包含 included custom graphics。好 ，custom 这个字呢，它可以表示定制的意思。好 ，made to order 啊，就是根据 order 来做的。好，那例如你可以讲这custom shoes， 就是你的定做的鞋子。好，那英文也常常讲 custom built， 就是根据这个客人要求定制的啊，或者 custom made 等等的。
You could call it purpose built, purpose made.
啊，也可以用 purpose made, purpose build。好，那在这里呢，意思就是特别定做的。但是事实上，这些因为他是骇客，他不可能跟别人讲说，我现在要弄一个这个电脑的这个病毒呢，你帮我画个东西哈。所以在这里其实这 custom graphics， 这 custom 就是多半就是他们自己做的，但是也是定做的，他们是 made specifically for this。啊，但是可能多半是他们自己做，因为他们不可能叫别人帮他做啊。那 graphics 就是一些图案，好，那甚至于他会把他的 creators names 这个做这个或者是设计这个病毒的人名字，他都会放上去啊。那 as part of their function， 通常这个病毒呢会包含 custom graphics， 好，那是当做它的功能的一部分啊，甚至于他可能会把他这个 creators 的名字也放上去。
They were all about causing trouble.I don't know if all of them were about, but a good majority of them were about causing trouble and would often lock down affected systems. Like you would turn on your computer. I've heard, this never happened to me, thank God, but this is the stories you would hear, that someone would turn on their computer and it would just be a demand to do something. Or not even a demand, it was just like, haha, got you, or something like that. Or it would delete all of the contents of a hard drive, which...If you didn't back up your hard drive to another hard drive, that would be it. There was no cloud storage at the time. So that was way more troublesome and a lot more malicious than just going, haha, now you can't get in your computer.
好 so they were all about something， 就是他们纯粹是为了什么，叫做 they were all about something。 所以这些这个当时的这些早期的病毒呢，纯粹是为了怎么样 causing trouble， 他只是想要制造麻烦而已。好，然后他常常会 would often lock down， 就是锁住 affected systems， 就是受到影响的这些系统啊，电脑系统。好，那甚至于他可能会怎么样 or delete， 他会删除 all the contents of a hard drive， 它会把一个硬碟上面所有的内容都把它删除掉啊，所以这个我以前也听过别人发生过这样的事情，中了那个电脑病毒呢，而且那电脑病毒一边删还一边跟你讲说我删多少了，我删多少了，你看着你的电脑资料就被这样通通的删的一个一个被删掉。
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.And
for the most part, computer hackers did this just for fun. It was like a competition. I mean, there was a whole movie made about the spirit of this where some kid was making a bet with another kid if they could hack the Department of Defense, the American Department of Defense.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Like it was just like, can I get into the hardest place to get into?
Yeah. 所以只是 just for fun 哈。那这个句子他讲到 and for the most part.For the most part 就是 generally or mostly 的意思。好，所以大多数的状况之下，这些 computer hackers 这些电脑骇客呢 did this just for fun. You do something just for fun 就是只是为了好玩。
Meaning they caused trouble just because they could. It was just how troublesome were you was a measure of how cool you were.
Yeah, 那他们制造了一些麻烦啊，只是因为 they could， 他只是因为我可以办得到，所以我就给你一些麻烦啊，那得到某一种的自我成就感。
It was a unique time in the history of technology, not just for hacker culture, but for everything. Like the 90s. I mean, I lived through the 90s and I didn't really realize how unique it was until afterwards. I was like, oh, wow, yeah. And like many other unique eras, it even has its own museum.
好，所以呢 it was a unique time， 那是一个独一无二的时刻啊，或者一段时间 in the history of technology， 那个是科技历史上面一段独一无二的时间啊，而且呢就好像很多其他的独一无二的这个 era 就是时代，就好像很多一些独一无二的时代呢，那这个时代它也有它自己的博物馆。
It was wild at that time because you knew that computers were coming and you knew that they were big and you were already starting to use them, but they were mostly at university. They weren't in your house. And you knew that companies used them and things. And you saw the changeover from paper to computers, but computers were still really stupid and hard to use. And it was kind of hard to believe in the future of computing when it was so much easier to do things on paper. So like I was the last generation at my school of completely paper architecture designs. After that, they switched to computer design.
Wow.
So, you know, my generation is the last generation that knows how to draw an entire set of architectural plans by hand, which is, you know, it's like knowing how to drive horses in an era of motorcycles and cars. You don't really need it, but I mean, it's a fun skill to have.
Yeah.
You know, but it was, you know, it's hard to see when you're in a changeover like that, it's hard to see what's coming.
Yeah.
It's very easy to see what you're losing. I knew that my skills were becoming unusable and that I needed to make new skills, but I was still graduating and getting a degree based on the old skills. And then in my first 10 years of actual work, I had to relearn all my skills and I had to teach myself how to draw on computer while at work. You know, it's just wild like that. That's what the 90s were like, is the changeover in time from paper to computing.
Yeah, 所以那是一个转变，这个很大的关键时代哈。那 Angela 讲说，他当时他念建筑系哈，他是最后一届还会用手画建筑图的人啊。那在他之后呢，大家都用电脑来画了。好，那这个差别就是，当他毕业去建筑事务所做事情的时候呢，他自己必须要去学怎么样用电脑的程式来画图啊。那本来他自己会用手画的这个图的那个时代已经过去了。好，那像我以前我也学过怎么样画工程图。好，那个时候我还记得那个要用那种鸭嘴笔啊，好，那个不小心就会弄得整个都黑掉的那种感觉。好，然后还要自己写工程字。好，但后来通通用电脑都搞定了。好，所以这是一个转变很大的一个时代。
It's a totally different skill set.
Yeah, 你需要的这个技术是完全不一样的技术。
Yeah. So, the Malware Museum, the third paragraph, was established by a cybersecurity expert. Cyber is just another word for computer at this point. It just means computer-related things. And this dude is named Mikko Hyppönen. And the way his name is spelt doesn't sound like how it sounds because it's not using English representation to represent these sounds. It's using Finnish representation. So these are how the Finnish people use these letters to represent these sounds. But in English, it looks like Hyppönen. It sounds like that.
Yeah, 好，所以呢，他讲到这个 Malware Museum 好，这个 恶意软体博物馆呢是谁创立的呢？是有一个网络安全专家啊，他的名字叫做 Mikko Hyppönen 啊，他所创立的，他是芬兰人。那还有跟另外一个人啊，一个 computer historian， 一个电脑历史学家，名字叫做 Jason Scott， 两个人合创的。
Now, Hyppönen has collected old viruses for many years. Like, wow, what a thing to do. But I mean, that's his thing. His whole thing is cybersecurity. Of course, you're going to collect. It's kind of like taking trophies. He had such hard fights with them. I'm sure he's like, he wants a trophy.
Yeah, 所以 trophy 就是一个战利品啊，所以他可能跟这些病毒奋战过，所以他把它留下来当战利品啊，所以他收集了一些古老的一些旧的这个 viruses for many years， 他收集了很多年了。
And even though they are no longer dangerous to most computers, like because computer programming has evolved, the languages have changed, so like an older language of program isn't going to actually interact with our modern computers, which is why you have to update your programs all the time because the language is changing. But even though it probably couldn't infect most modern computers, he has anyways deactivated or taken out or made harmless the harmful code, the part that would actually hurt the computer, and just left the rest of the virus's function. So you can safely open up these viruses on your computer and watch them work without it actually endangering your computer.
好，所以虽然呢，这些病毒 are no longer dangerous to most computers， 对大多数电脑来讲，这些过时的病毒已经没有什么危险了，但是它还是 deactivated， 就是使它失效，to make ineffective， 或者是这个 to make it inactive， harmless 等等的，它把怎么样 the harmful。code 就是有害的编码，把它使它失效了。然后呢，它只留下这个病毒的这个其他的功能所以这个病毒已经无害了。
Without any threat of deleting a victim's hard drive, without any threat of horrible things happening to your computer, the viruses are almost like works of art. You can just appreciate them for their creativity.
好，所以现在已经没有威胁，它会delete 会删除你的这个 hard drive victim 就是受害者，现在已经不会这样做了。那这些 viruses 现在怎么样？几乎是好像是个 works of art， 好像是艺术品了。
Most include graphics, which are pictures, or animations, which are moving pictures, and they act as a reminder of a simpler time. They serve to tell us about or help us remember a simpler time on the internet. I disagree with his characterization of the 90s as a simpler time. It was just as complicated and hard for us then as our current times are for us now. It's just a different kind of problem.
好，所以呢，这个他说大多数这些病毒呢，包含了一些 graphics 就是图案或者是 animations 或者动画，然后他们 act as a reminder of， 就是它能让人回忆起什么 ，reminder 就是 something that reminds you 让你回忆起一个 a simpler time on the internet， 就是网络上比较单纯的一个时代那当然这个是不是比较单纯，这个每一个人都有不同的看法像这个也许从现在往回看那比较 simpler， 可是在当时那绝对不是一个 simple time。
It feels simpler because we've resolved most of the problems or ignored most of the problems from then. That's it.
Yeah.
So the museum exists exclusively online. It is only online. And this is where visitors who have flocked to the website by the thousands. So there's thousands of people who've already looked at this website. And visitors here can see examples of another era of computer culture.
好，那这个博物馆呢，它只存在这个online 在线上exclusively 就是这个别的地方没有，只有在这里有，叫做 exclusively， 所以它只存在于这个网络上面。那 visitors 去看的人呢，那他介绍一下 visitors 现在怎么样呢？就是这些 visitors who have flocked to the website。To flock to 就是成群的去，就是蜂拥而至的意思这个 by the thousands 就是数以千计的人已经去这个网络上看过了，也去这网站上看过了。那这个 museum 你在这里这个 visitors 可以看到一些例子，什么例子呢？ Of another era of computer culture， 你可以看到电脑文化的另外一个时代的东西。
And though the viruses were often far more destructive than today's malware, Destructive meaning they would destroy like people's personal data. But I mean, I honestly think today's malware is more destructive on a systematic level. So, but on an individual level, yeah, the 90s era viruses were pretty horrible. Anyways, Huberman acknowledges that they were rarely done as part of organized crime, like they are today, but by happy hackers, individual people who were just joyriding through the internet or pushing the limits of what was possible on the web.
好，所以虽然呢，这些病毒是怎么样，比现在的这个 malware 呢是 far more destructive， 就具有更大的破坏性，所以以前的病毒比今天的病毒还要有更大的破坏性。那刚刚这个 Angela 老师也讲，也许在个人的 level 是这样，但现在的病毒其实它更有系统性的破坏，而且它有的时候它去勒索的是那种大公司，好，所以呢更大规模的犯罪。但是不管怎么说，他说啊，这些病毒呢比现在的一些病毒还要更有破坏性。但是这个 Huberman 他也 acknowledges， 他也承认啊 ，they were rarely done as part of organized crime。他们很少是组织犯罪的一部分。以前虽然那个病毒很坏，但是它不是犯罪组织做的。换句话说，现在很多病毒是犯罪组织在做的。好，那以前的病毒呢，不是由犯罪组织做的，而是怎么样 by happy hackers， 就是快乐的骇客。那这些人只不过是 pushing the limits of， 就是挑战什么的极限。他们只是在挑战极限，他们只是在挑战极限而已。是什么样的极限呢？是 what was possible on the web， 就网络上有什么事情是可能的，他们只是去挑战一下那个极限在哪里。
So we have some questions here for you, and these are the hard kind, which I'm finding way more interesting than the multiple choice of your.
Yeah, 这是一种我们这个练习是108课纲的混合题型，所以比较难，但是也比较好玩。
So number one is, how does the author begin the passage? How does he begin the whole story?
所以作者是如何带出本文的？
And the answer is C, by comparing and contrasting.
所以答案是 C， 好，运用对照跟对比的手法。
And that's in the second sentence. Different kinds of malware can do anything. Number two, the sentences in paragraph 3 are numbered 1 to 5, conveniently enough. Write down the number of the sentence that best shows how the Malware Museum protects computers from getting infected. So which one is the one that talks about how computers are protected?
所以第三段的句子上面有标上1到5的编号。那哪一句最能表明恶意软体博物馆保护电脑不受感染的方法呢？请你写下那个句子的编号。
And the answer is 3, because he says he has deactivated the harmful code. So that phrase there shows us how the computers are protected.
那答案是3，因为第三句说这些东西这些病毒虽然已经不危险了，但是它还是使它的这个有害的编码让它失效它只留下了那个病毒的其他功能。
And number 3, where can you find the Malware Museum? On what corner of the globe?
你可以在哪里找到恶意软体博物馆呢？
The answer is not on anywhere on the globe, but on the internet. In paragraph 4, sentence 1, it says it is exclusively, meaning only, online.
所以答案是 online， 或者你也可以写 on the internet， 或者你也可以写 on the web。
And number 4, fill in the blanks with the information contained in the passage.
将本文包含的资讯填入空格。
And so here A is vandals breaking windows with rocks. So they are compared to vandals breaking windows with rocks.
所以早期病毒被比喻成什么呢？第一个空格我们要填的是 A， 被比喻成用石头砸破玻璃的破坏分子。
And B is what do they do? And what they do is steal just a little bit of ad revenue or system resources.
好，那接下来他们会做什么呢？这个记录案件动作之外，这个空格我们写 B， 他们会偷一些这个广告收益，或者是占用你一些系统的资源。
And that's all we have for you today. Please join us again tomorrow. Until then,